Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I am Aaron Loomis, and with me, as always, is Jiunn Liu. How you doing, Jiunn?
Doing good, man.
So today we are talking about the Island Lifestyle Age Reserve Series Sun-Grown Toro. It's a bit of a Toro Extra 6-inch by 54 ring gauge. The factory, the blender, and the country of origin are not disclosed, but the wrapper is Nicaraguan sun-grown, and the binder and filler are both from Nicaragua. The price point is $9.95, and the cigar was released in July of 2017. So with that out of the way, June, what was your pre-light experience like?
Um, I rated the pre-light to be good. So in terms of the look of the cigar, medium brown. Since it's sun grown, you could feel like the hardiness of that wrapper. Major veins well pressed, seems tight, even give, thick double cap. Calls for a good-looking cigar. So in terms of smelling the wrapper, I got cedar, hay, dry barnyard. Smelling that foot, white pepper, dry wood, cold draw, cedar, hay, and dry nuts. So good presentation.
Yeah, the aroma I got from the wrapper was like a nice stone fruit sweetness on the foot, brought a little mix of hay and raisin. Pre-light draw was a mix of hay and raisin as well, except for a little bit heavier on the hay side. One other thing I wanted to mention is I was hoping for a little bit more from the band on this cigar. You know, just based on the products that they're doing for the Tommy Bahama stuff, like how vibrant the graphics and stuff like that are. It just seemed like it was a little too dull. The gloss was a little too dull, and or something like that. I was just hoping for a little bit more, vibrant colors and maybe glossiness on it to kind of fit in with those products. So, and that's a small thing. I mean, you could change bands on a cigar, no problem, and jazz it up a bit. But it's just a something I'm seeing kind of from the brand as a whole that could step it up.
So you
Um,
want like a cloth band with like a cleaver on it? Is that what you want?
no, 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 it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that.
Well, I'm making
Um,
fun of a different
yeah,
company.
yeah, no, it's fine. So what was your flavor profile experience like?
Um, First third, I thought the cigar did a pretty good job of like virtually touching every aspect of what I deem to be as a good cigar, right? So when I look for a good cigar, right, not a great cigar, good cigar, I look for sweetness, earthiness, and spice. So there's definitely all of those. You know, there's like a sweetness and like a naturally sweet, like dry nuttiness, like dry nuts. Earthiness in the sense with like dry wood, dry nuts, wood bitterness, and spice in the sense of a black pepper spice. So it all hit those ones pretty well. Retro gives me a bigger pop and black pepper, dried nuts, and some citrus coming through. Finished fairly long with the dry wood and black pepper on the rear palate, not on the throat, but just kind of like on that rear palate sitting there. Strength and body, most part medium. Moving on to the second third. I thought it was more earth forward, having dry wood, dried nuts, wood bitterness shine more so than that natural sweetness coming from the dry nuttiness. Also, a nice baking spice kind of joins in, and that pair well with the black pepper spice. Retrolink still elevated notes of black pepper, dried nuts, loses out on that citrus note though. Dry wood, black pepper on the rear palate. Strength and body still for the most part medium. Moving to the final third, aside from a super pesky burn, which just I'll get into later when we talk about construction. The last part is probably my favorite part of the cigar. Cigar transitions into more of a, namely, naturally sweet, creamy dried nuts profile with the baking spice backing. This also carries forth to the finish, which is always an added plus instead of just like dry wood lingering. Retro still black pepper and dried nuts focus. So overall, it was a surprisingly good cigar.
Yeah, the cigar started out with like really full flavors right out of the gate, which is nice to see. Creamy wood, baking spices, quarter inch in that cream increased a little bit to smooth out some of the baking spice bite. Retrohale carried quite a bit of baking spice, and the burn was just barely bearable for me. Almost too much. At an inch in, the wood, cream, and the baking spice were all at equal levels, so the mixture was pretty nice. Inch and a quarter in, the retrohale had settled down some, and had the same core flavors from the mouth draw. And the baking spice was more prominent, but it wasn't as punishing as it was earlier. And that's kind of how the profile finished out in that first third, and strength was slightly above medium. Getting in the second third, the wood had moved up front, while the cream and the baking spices were a little slightly in the lower tier. At a quarter inch in, cream evened out with the wood again, and the baking spice was becoming a bit fainter. At an inch in, the wood was more defined as oak, had taken the lead, and the baking spice was still very faint. Retrohale was now primarily a creamy oak, and it was much smoother than it was earlier in the cigar. As the third was coming to a close, a little bit of black pepper joined in with the oak, while the cream was a nice supporting note, and the strength was in the slightly above medium mark. In the final third, profile was now just like a creamy oak. At a quarter inch in, a slight wood bitterness kind of joined in with that creamy oak note. And then an inch in, the bitterness was that was there previously was pretty trivial, but the creamy oak note was still present. Retrohale carried that same creamy oak note, and that's how the cigar finished out, and the strength maintained at that slightly above medium mark. So what was your construction like?
Construction on the burn, I rated it average. I had to do a couple of really major relights. It was one of those cigars where you draw on it, you're like, all right, why isn't this freaking wrapper burning?
Right.
That really annoys me. Like when it does that and there's like faint smoke production, it makes me not want to smoke the cigar. But I smoked this one because it's for review. I guess the good part of the burn is, cigar burns slow. It was cool the whole way, fairly sturdy ashes, but the burn line was just horrible, and I had to basically touch up like 2 inches of the cigar. But it is what it is. But I don't think it affected the flavors that much because I still enjoy the tasting profile. So on the draw, a little tight for my liking, but no real complaints.
Yeah, for me, the burn line was slightly wavy, but it always kept up with itself, so I didn't have the same level of burn issues that you did. Ash did hold on 1 inch increments. In regards to the draw, absolutely perfect. Just around amount of resistance I prefer. No complaints in regards to that and the draw there. So, what were your overall thoughts on this cigar?
I'd say 2 things. I would say that I overall enjoy the flavor profile of this cigar. It was tasty. It was surprising. And it's surprising because, anytime you have one of these cigars where like the literature says undisclosed, everything's undisclosed, it makes me feel like, all right, what freaking Asian warehouse did you yank this out of, right? Like, at least tell me what factory is coming at us so I could get somewhat of a sense of that factory's profile, right?
Right.
But it doesn't have that. So when it doesn't have that, I kind of think, all right, I hope whoever owns this brand smoke some of these samples and like it for himself or herself. So I think it's a winner in that sense. I think this is going to be one of those sleepers. Like, unless if you kind of enjoy that Tommy Bahama kind of accessories of the cigars industry, and you know about that, this will probably not get on your radar. I assume things where you maybe like get it in like a sampler or like a fiver, and you're like, oh, this is actually pretty damn good.
Right.
So, in my opinion, this is well worth picking up.
Yeah, the cigar started out with a blast of flavor and then kind of settled into a nice profile of creamy oak and baking spices. Kind of maintained that through the first 2/3. Last third was a little less complex with just that creamy oak note. But construction was really good for me. I know you had some burn issues. So I've smoked a couple of these and I haven't had any major burn issues like that. So I'm hoping that yours was just kind of a one-off. I think it's a really nice, flavorful cigar. And like on my sample, I didn't have to pay attention to the construction, so I could really focus on those flavors. And I'm really interested in trying, the other lines now that they have. So I definitely smoke more of these. I think it's worthwhile for people to check out. I had smoked some before you had a chance to smoke them, and I thought that you'd probably be a little bit surprised by the flavor profile, and it sounds like you were, so that was good. I was kind of looking forward to seeing what your reaction was going to be. So in regards to scores, we actually scored it identical, even though we scored it differently. I mean, you scored it higher on the flavor side than the construction because of your construction issues. I was a little lower on the flavor, but higher on the construction, but we still ended up with the same 6.72 score. So how do you think that matches up with your experience?
Match up well. I mean, kind of brings me back to the article you wrote about kind of, is 90 really 90, right? Yeah. So for us is 5 or whatever. People are like, what the fuck is a 5? It did horrible. No, it didn't. But my average for this year is still kind of around the 6.7 to like 6.9, mark.
Right.
Meaning they're pleasant smokes, right? They're tasty cigars, but it's nothing that's going to wow me, right? Or nothing where I want to put down and just be like, all right, this is just horse shit. So it means it's a good cigar. Like you said, I rated a flavor profile a little higher than you did, where my offset on the markings down was due to the construction. But, I'll take a crappier constructed cigar and a tastier cigar any day of the week over the, of this IRAC.
Yep, I'd agree. And the only difference was the final third that we scored differently, and mine was just one notch below yours, so it wasn't a huge difference in regards to flavor. But well, I dug the flavor, so mine matches up well. And really good flavors for the first two thirds, really good construction. I thought it was good overall. I like it when a cigar just kind of can just front right out the gate, the first draw, you got a ton of good flavors. Like that's just like it doesn't have to build up for you, and it's just there, and it stayed that way the whole way. So. Um, it's I don't get these full flavor cigars that often. So when you get one of them, I really dig it. So I enjoyed it. So any other final thoughts from you on this?
Um, that's an interesting point you bring up because in regards to like you saying you like it when upon initial light and upon the first draw, you really like the flavor profile. I mean, I do too, of course. Who the hell does it? But it's really hard to find something like that. I mean, first of all, hard to find it. It's also probably more difficult to find it when you find one where your palate could still continuously enjoy it till the very end of the cigar.
Right.
And this cigar, my palate enjoyed it the entire way through.
Yeah.
Which is always good.
Yep, I'd agree with everything you just said. If you're just catching this video on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us, but also check out the full written review on the website, developingpalates.com. Be sure to follow us on all the social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google+. And you can catch all of our review recaps on podcasts, so iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.